was doing all the right things. I was eating gluten-free, dairy-free, sugar-free. Despite all of those efforts, I put on 15 pounds. I broke out with cystic acne. One morning, I woke up in excruciating pain. I looked up and there was black mold all over the ceiling.
Welcome to the Rock Bottom Podcast presented by Jigsaw Health, where we share health horror stories that inspire. Today's guest is Jenn Malecha. Jenn's rock bottom began with years of unexplained symptoms, including weight gain, skin issues, and declining health, despite living what she believed was a healthy lifestyle. Her journey back to health started when she discovered black mold growing on the ceiling of her home office, uncovering a root cause that she never expected, and leading her to help others identify the hidden environmental factors that may be standing in the way of their own healing.
Before we dive in, just a quick note that this podcast is for informational purposes only and is not a substitute for medical advice. So please always consult with a healthcare professional before making any significant changes to your health routine.
This is the Rock Bottom Podcast.
Jenn Malecha, welcome to the Rock Bottom Podcast. How are you today?
I'm doing fantastic. I see we're wearing the same color. So we were vibing on the same teal sides today.
They say geniuses pick teal. I guess I missed that boat.
Yeah, well, my whole entire brand is teal, so I'm definitely on it.
They must be right then.
Yeah.
Perfect. Well, Jenn, we've known you for maybe 3 or 4 years. You are the creator of Holistic Health Boss, and we recently saw you here in Scottsdale at the Consumer Health Summit, and you started to tell us about your mold story, and that's when Ashley and I were like, hold on. This will be a great episode for the Rock Bottom Podcast. So should we start there?
Absolutely. Jenn, what we'd like to do is have you take us to your rock bottom moment, the one that I know a lot of people can experience multiple in their lives, but the one that we're going to talk about today, take us to that moment, and then we'll back up and talk about how you got there, and then we'll dive into how you ended up here today. So take us back.
I'm going to take you back 10 years as it relates to mold then, because honestly, and this all come together as part of the story of what I'm dealing with now and how we ended up here in this conversation is that, 10 years ago in 2016, I had been a functional health practitioner for 3 years at that point in time. And I was doing all the right things, you guys. We know what that stuff is. Like I was eating gluten-free, dairy-free, sugar-free, soy-free, reducing alcohol intake. I was doing castor oil packs on a regular basis. I was taking all these amazing supplements. And even despite all of those efforts, slowly over a period of time, I put on 15 pounds. I broke out with cystic acne, and I had never had acne in my entire life. I started to have night sweats, which some people were starting to say, like, well, maybe your hormones are shifting and you're entering perimenopause early because I had a long history of birth control use. And ultimately what like that rock bottom moment led up to was one morning I woke up in excruciating pain as I rolled over onto my right side because my breast was so inflamed. And I had this huge red streak that went from my nipple all the way to my armpit. And I was freaking out because as I looked at this huge streak that was on my breast and I could feel the heat radiating off of it actually through 2 layers of clothing. After I got dressed, I was wondering if I had breast cancer. Because little side note here is that I had skin cancer at 25 and this was happening to me at, how old was I then? 33. So I was like, oh my God, is this cancer back in my breast? And I spent the rest of the weekend basically freaking out and doing research and contacting all these women's health specialists here in San Diego. And of course, by the time I got to those appointments, the streak was gone. And these health specialists had no answers for me. Like the first one that I went to, she looked at me and said, well, maybe we should keep an eye on it. And thought that then said, maybe you put on 15 pounds of muscle, which is absolutely insane.
Wouldn't that be nice?
Yeah.
Wouldn't that be nice? Also, side note, I used to work in the fitness industry and compete for fitness competitions. Like for women to put on 15 pounds of muscle, like that's insane. That would take a really long time and you would have to work so hard at it.
Yes.
And then the next specialist that I went to was like, well, why don't we just do some topical progesterone cream, but couldn't explain how or why that would help. So I didn't want to do that without that information. Um, Long story short, like after all that, I finally got my answer. I sat down in my like guest room office at the time because I was this, virtual health practitioner with my own business and working from home. And as I sat down, I like opened the closet door, which was about a foot away from me to gather some materials for a new client. And for the very first time, I don't know why I had never done this. I looked up and there was black mold all over the ceiling.
Wow.
Ooh.
Visibly there.
Visibly. Yeah,
Yeah.
there was a roof leak that apparently had been there for a while and we just didn't know. And what's interesting is like all of these symptoms were accumulating over the course of 2 years, which is when I started working from home and I started working in that guest room. So when I was working in an office before that, I wasn't, being bombarded with all of this mold all day long. And also our dog at the time, our adorable black lab, he was the canary in the coal mine, actually looking back on it. Like he started having chronic health issues before I really started accumulating these like significant symptoms, basically.
So you're saying that our pets can also have mold illness?
Oh, yeah. I actually just hired a mold mitigation specialist for my second rodeo with mold that's happening right now that we'll get to.
Yeah.
And going through her onboarding and intake process, that's actually one of the questions that they ask on there is, have you had a pet either recently get chronically ill or get an unexplained illness or even pass away unexpectedly? Because they can be the canaries in the coal mine for us.
So I realize that we probably have some bottom feeders in the audience that are listening to this episode and thinking, Malecha, have I heard that name before? Yes. Jenn is the wife of Jeremy Malecha, who we recorded an episode with recently. And he had a similar, although he really didn't talk about mold, but he had a similar weight gain. If I recall correctly, it was related to gluten, right?
It was related to gluten, and he has a beef sensitivity and
Yes.
some estrogen dominance going on. So,
So
yeah.
you helped coach him through that. And I bring that up as a way of like, you must have had a moment of like, okay, I helped Jeremy lose, I think it was like 40, 50 pounds or so,
Yeah.
like really quickly, 6 months or so.
Yeah.
And you are now in this like, why do I weigh 15 more pounds? Like, and I'm, doing all the things that I feel like it should help.
Mhm.
But I think what you discovered is you were continuously being exposed to the mold
Mhm.
working in that guest room.
Yeah. And I think this is like something for everybody to think about is like the impacts of our environment. Right. And that's kind of the awareness that came through in that experience was when we're doing all the right things, quote unquote, all the right things, there are still things to be explored when we feel stuck in our health or we're having these rock bottom moments. So Jeremy is an example of that too. He was doing a lot of healthy things. He had moved to a gluten-free diet. We were eating more organic, and still was feeling stuck. And that's where functional lab testing can help reveal some of the things that we can't like see, some of the invisible stuff that's going on for, people like him that had a beef sensitivity. So even though he was eating organic, grass-fed, super healthy beef, like he has a sensitivity to it that was really
Right.
impacting his body. Or for somebody like me that's doing a lot of the more advanced like therapies and approaches and protocols and strategies and still feeling stuck, then we want to start to think about what is putting pressure on the body that's creating this outcome. And we want to think externally about what's happening in the environment, which is actually how I got to figure out at this point in time how we're dealing with mold again, because I
Mm.
found myself back in that same kind of scenario again.
Before we go to the current mold situation, I am curious when you saw the mold in the closet, I'm sure that immediately you were like, Okay, light bulb moment. And
Yeah.
also, why have I never thought to test myself for mold, correct?
Yeah, lots of those things were happening, and like part of what would like I started to understand there was something in my office though, actually, because like leading up to that exact moment of opening the closet, what I didn't say earlier was that I had been menstruating for 12 days straight.
Wow.
Yeah,
That's
that's out of whack.
yeah, crazy, right? And that
Yeah.
was it was a Thursday morning. I remember it so clearly. And on Thursday mornings, I was still doing some personal training. So I would go train one of my clients at her house at 7 a.m. So I woke up and my period had stopped. And then I went and trained this client. And then I came back and I sat in my office. And within like an hour or two of like sitting in my office, my period started again. And I was
Wow.
like, there's something going on in this room. And that's then like within, I don't know, however long, an hour or something is when I opened the closet and there was the mold all over the ceiling. Right.
Okay, so what testing and what was your next move in terms of like figuring out, okay, I gotta do a
Yeah.
test to make sure that this is what it really is? Like, what did you do
Oh,
to fix
yeah. I mean, it was like I just immediately extracted myself out of the room. I went and worked in the like moved my computer, all the things out in the dining room. That was like step number one.
Yeah.
And from doing that within a matter of a day or two, like I started to feel better. So the acne subsided like right away. Like some of the weight started to drop right away,
Mm.
basically. So we can have those immediate outputs from that. Then there was like no denying the fact that it was mold. Then we went through like the proper home testing to realize like the actual black mold that we had was Stachybochus, which is one of the most toxic types of black molds because there are a lot of different types of strains of molds or mycotoxins. Some are more like toxic than others, essentially. I also then got into like I did some blood work, I did a Dutch test, I did a mycotoxins urine test to figure out what strains were in my body.
Question on the Dutch test. What does that have to do with mold?
So on the Dutch test, one of the things that we look at on there is called phase one estrogen metabolism. So how your estrogen is being metabolized through your detox system and your liver, which can actually also give us insights about phase two estrogen metabolism, which is a lens into your body's detox capacity and the liver capacity, and seeing is the drainage system clogged. So it was definitely clogged. Also, what it picked up for me was that I was estrogen dominant. So we can look at three different types of estrogens on a Dutch test. We're looking at estrogen metabolites versus blood is going to reveal different types of clues. So my blood work was actually missing the fact that I was estrogen dominant, but the Dutch test was revealing it and also showing some patterns about some hypothyroidism that was going on, which led me to do thyroid testing, which then revealed that I also had some Hashimoto stuff that was happening, all just part of the storm and the chaos that the mold had created in my body.
How does black mold exposure, why would it cause weight gain? Why would it
Mhm.
cause the cystic acne? Do you have any ideas why that is?
Oh gosh, where do we even start with that question, Patrick? So there's multiple mechanisms that are happening when we encounter something toxic like black mold,
Okay.
right? So one of the things is that mold, especially certain strains, can are very it's very estrogenic. So it mimics estrogen in the body,
Hmm.
right? And then some of the different types of strains are even more estrogenic than other ones. So think back to my story about like my breasts being super inflamed, putting on weight, and acne that's going on. Those can oftentimes be like estrogen type of symptoms, right? Or the fact that I was having night sweats,
And
essentially.
that's why one of those doctors wanted to put progesterone cream
Exactly. They're
to
like,
it's like, well, that's an estrogen dominant symptom. If we put progesterone there, once again, it'll just kind of mask
right.
the problem. It's not getting to the root cause at all.
Exactly. It's like, why is estrogen high in the first place? How about we talk about that, right?
Yeah.
Mhm.
So that's kind of one layer of what we can see that's happening. The other part of it is that mold will then colonate within the body tissues. So it can colonate in the nose and the respiratory tissues and the rest of the tissues of the body. And then it starts to produce mycotoxins internally in the body. So this is just overloading your detox system, right? Like it becomes too much for the detox system to carry out. So it gets trapped. And part of what the body will do with not only mold, but other types of toxins as well, is it's like a safety mechanism in order to protect you from the damages of toxins. It will start to trap it within the fat, right? So this is where we can see weight accumulation that can happen over time with people, even though they're doing all the right things like exercising and eating healthy, is that they have probably a burden of toxins, whether it's mold or heavy metals or other environmental toxins going on in the body, that are the body's then trapping it within the fat to save itself, right? To make it safe, to make it really safe. And then mold can also dysregulate our nervous system. So it's going to dysregulate, for example, like how your body responds to stress. And it's like frying all of your fuse boxes or your electrical wires in the system. It also really messes with your balance of blood sugar, like the hormone leptin can get dysregulated. So you can find yourself, craving food more, specifically carbohydrates, which then happens to like feed the mold, like the yeast and the candida that's growing in there. And so that in itself can then lead to like overeating or not eating the right things, or downstream or upstream, it dysregulates sleep and cortisol rhythm. So it is just getting its claws in everything, for example, and really creating a lot of chaos in the body.
And really, it just kind of depends on the person. I mean, a lot of people do have similar symptoms, I would
Mhm.
say, from what I've heard, but also like everybody kind of expresses it differently, right?
Yeah, exactly. The expression can be so different across individuals depending on do they have a genetic mutation? Like there's a gene that 25% of the population has that makes them hypersensitive to mold. I'm actually not one of those people
You know what that
necessarily.
gene is?
It's called the HDLR gene. It's a little bit challenging to test for specifically, but like 25% of the population can have that gene. And those are the type of people that they walk into a moldy room and they instantly have a reaction, right? Like can't even stand it being in that room. There was a book that I read early on in this journey back in 2016 that was written by a naturopathic doctor, actually. And she's one of those people, like, she tells a story about getting off the plane in the Portland airport, which is very moldy, and like instantly having a reaction in there. I'm not necessarily that person, but we also then have people that have different types of genetic mutations that affect their detox capacity. Like Jeremy is actually one of those people. He's got the MTFHR gene mutation and COMT. So he really has to support his detox system in a very specific way, right? So as you guys know Reed Davis, you've met him from Functional Diagnostic Nutrition. Like Reed Davis talks about how the expressions of symptoms will happen in people's like wherever their weak links are. And as individuals, we all have different types of weak links, like genetic components. So for some of us, it might be an expression of like, mine was Hashimoto's. Other people, it might be celiac or Crohn's disease or something different that's happening for them.
But the source is all mold. Is that the point, or is
Yeah.
it any kind of environmental toxin potentially?
I really think it's any type of environmental toxin. Having been a practitioner now for 13 years and really getting to see all these clients come through my practice and the different kinds of cases that are happening, we throw around the term root cause a lot in the functional medicine and integrative longevity industry that we all work within. And sometimes people will say like, oh, perimenopause is the root cause or Hashimoto's is the root cause. But when you really zoom out and think a little bit more globally about something, it's like what really at the end of the day is contributing to that type of dysfunction in the body. Like the body is intelligent. it knows what to do. It knows how to be in balance. So when something is out of balance, what's kicking it out of balance? What is the unnatural elements that are kicking it out of balance? And the things that are unnatural in our environment are toxins. And if,
Yeah, essentially it's the toxic bucket. Like we all have a bucket, and when it's full and
yeah,
starts to spill over, that's when whatever our, let's call it the weak links in our genetic DNA, whatever our most vulnerable places are
mhm,
the ones that get triggered, right?
exactly. Yep. And like, and when we think about mold, so one of the things I want to say related to this about mold is something that I have been learning in more depth now as a result of this current mold experience. You guys have met our dear friend Sinclair Canary at CHS also. And she has a clinical training program called Toxin University that I'm in right now. And we're learning about like why the mold today is not your grandmother's mold. Like, why
Mm.
is mold more toxic or more impactful on the body now? And it's because of the toxic building materials that we use
Man.
that make it more toxic. Because you know what's really interesting, you guys? Like, they talk about mold in the Bible.
Mm.
Like mold has been around forever, and and for like centuries or however long, like they've been able, like we used to address mold with like essential oils, like Three Thieves oil
Mm.
actually helps to combat mold and clean it up, right? So it's been around for a really long time. So why is it so problematic now in our modern day world? Well, one is there's not a lot of regulation about building, like proper construction or remediation or how to deal with damaged water buildings. But also because of the building materials that we use are so toxic themselves, it makes the mold like more of a threat or more toxic as well too.
Okay, so I think of building materials. I go to asbestos, which has been outlawed, I think, since like the 80s, right?
Yeah.
Asbestos causing cancer. Did we change it for something worse, basically? Is that what happened?
I mean, is sheetrock, like everybody has sheetrock in their house, is sheetrock non-toxic?
I don't
I don't
know.
think anything is.
I know. We got to go
Right?
back to living in straw houses or something. Or
Yeah.
clay, actually. Clay is probably the safest building material.
I mean, or cement, you know, like I
Yeah.
always think about when I go down to Mexico, I think about how all of their buildings down there are built out of cement. So they like can withstand all types of weather elements. And I'm like, why don't we do that here? I even think like a lot of our wood is manufactured with other stuff. Like, is it all
Chemicals.
100% like natural
Yeah.
wood?
If I had to guess, I would say no. I think we have a lot of room for improvement there, and really just in our environment in general. So, if we can't control our environments, we can't
Mhm.
control every aspect of our environments. What are the best things that we can do as individuals to support our detox system? That's the question I want to get back to with you, but I don't want to go there just yet because I have a couple questions for you. Um, First of all, how, besides just removing yourself from the office that had the black mold,
Mhm.
what other things did you do to detox from the mold?
Oh gosh. So I really had to adapt my supplement approach and protocol to bring in things that were going to help to open up like the drainage system of the body. So, and then also the specific binders that were going to help to bind that mold and bring it out of the
Mm-hmm.
body. Because mold had also triggered Hashimoto's for me from just the complexity of how it interacts with the body and what it was doing with estrogen and thyroid. I also committed to like doing a modified AIP, autoimmune paleo diet, just to reduce as much inflammatory factors as possible. And I'm really grateful to say that I was able to reverse Hashimoto's within 6 months.
Mm.
That's incredible.
Yeah, I quit like drinking alcohol completely. I mean, I do love a glass of wine on the weekend, but I was like, I'm not like my body needs more from me right now, so we're just taking that out of the equation,
Mhm.
right? I also had to dial back my exercise. Like,
Mm.
I'm a fitness enthusiast. I love hitting the gym. I love running. And while exercise has a lot of value to the body, when the body is really stressed and inflamed, intensity of your exercise matters. because when we're doing more intense exercise like lifting and like running, we're breaking down bone and tissue and asking the body to rebuild when it's already in a depleted state. So I also committed to just doing 30 days of just yoga and walking to give my body some space to make some really bigger leaps and bounds and healing. And then I was able to return back to my regular workout routine.
So maybe let's talk about phase 1 and phase 2 detox. Give everybody in the audience a little reminder of that.
Yeah, so I love, Dr. Carrie Jones is, she talks about this really eloquently. So I'm going to borrow from Summer, like her analogy of the bathtub, right? So we've got the faucet that comes into the bathtub. Then you can think of your liver is the bathtub. So stuff is coming in. We have the drain that opens up the bathtub and then the actual piping that goes out, essentially. So I want you to think about like the piping that goes out of the bathtub, like into the street, like that's going to be your phase 2 area. So if you have, let's say, a clump of hair that's in the piping, that's going to clog, it's going to create a backup in the bathtub. It's not going to drain very well. And then we also need the drain, like the actual, like, what is the little thing in the bathtub called? Like the little plug that you pull out, right? The stopper. We need that to be open also. So that's kind of like the phase 1. So as practitioners, we actually have to think about this in reverse, is that we actually want to open up like phase 2 of drainage, because we want that if there's hair clogged in the pipe and we open the plug in the bathtub, it's not going to move very well. So we want to think about opening up the drainage of the pipes first, and then we come up and we open up the plug of the bathtub and focus a little bit more on the liver, which I would say is not always the approach that's taken. Like a lot of people will emphasize like, oh, let's support the liver. Let's bring in some milk thistle and some other things. But if you've got a clogged drain, it's not going anywhere.
Right.
So we have to open up that drainage stuff first.
So that was the best explanation of phase 1 and phase 2 detox pathways that I've heard. Also the most succinct. So congratulations, you win. So then maybe talk about, and obviously, we give this disclaimer in every show. This is not for medical advice. This is not meant to replace a healthcare practitioner. But I'm curious what binders you used, what detox tools you use. You started to talk about binders. Can you be more specific?
Yeah. And first I want to preface and say, just remember, we have to focus on like opening up drainage first
Phase
and
2,
supporting
right.
those systems, which I know you guys have an amazing magnesium product. Like magnesium is actually one of those elements that helps to support these different phases of detoxification. So I would actually bring in things like magnesium first, maybe some calcium D-glucarate first, some N-acetylcysteine, what we call NAC, which is a precursor to things like glutathione. Also making sure that people are pooping daily, because that's actually, that's how we get the stuff out. So think about that's like your drainage from the bathtub to the actual sewer system, right?
Right.
Like if the sewer line is like the main line of the street sewer is clogged, then it's just going to back up back into your bathtub, right? So we
Right.
have to be pooping and making sure that we're urinating properly.
Okay, I have to ask you this.
Wow.
How many of your clients they're struggling with pooping daily?
Oh my gosh, like probably like 80% of them.
What?
That is like such a common thing that gets overlooked, you guys. And it'll be not even just a current situation. Like a lot of times when I get into talking with clients, like this is something that's been happening since childhood. And so they'll be like, well, yeah, ever since I was a kid, I always had like bouts of constipation. And then we can track the like health issues along like their whole entire timeline, where it's like, oh, like these toxins have been getting trapped in your body for like decades at this point in time, like overflowing the cup, like Ashley was saying earlier. And what's so fascinating is that sometimes the reason that they're constipated is simply for the fact that they are super busy, like health-minded professionals that are always on the go. They're not making time to go to the bathroom. And like one of their like homework things that I'll give them is I'm like, your bowels, like if you look at a Chinese medicine body clock, Chinese medicine has watched this really well, like the circadian rhythm of the body. You will see that at 6 a.m., the large intestine wants to do its thing and move those bowels. And so I will tell my clients, like, their homework is to get up and immediately go to the toilet and sit there for 15 minutes because
Is that all?
that's, they're just not making space for
Maybe
it.
they're not scrolling, Patrick.
Yeah.
This is
I
not
tell
about
them,
me, actually. This is
I'm
not
like,
about me.
it's okay if you scroll or like read a book or whatever. Like maybe you can do some of your meditation or deep breathing at that time. And often that's all it takes.
Yeah.
Is just to create the time to go to the bathroom because we live in such a fast-paced world. People are just sacrificing that part, they're just
Wow.
not paying attention to it. Isn't that wild?
I can't imagine. But yeah, I mean, I've been taking magnesium religiously for, well, Jigsaw's 21 years old.
Yeah.
And so 21 years.
Yeah, which helps to stimulate the colon and get all that stuff
Of
moving.
course. Yeah.
So like
Right.
magnesium has like all these miracle benefits,
Yes.
right?
Yes, exactly. Okay,
Um,
fascinating.
okay,
So a
back to
bit
the
of an
binders.
aside from your story, but I'm glad we're covering this.
Yeah, so back to the binders real quick. So we know we're going to support drainage and detox first before we bring in the binders. I am a really big fan of a lot of the Cellcore products. They have a very specific formula called biotoxin binder that is for mold specifically. Then we work up in intensity, maybe up to their carboxy product. And also, there's a lot of other great formulas on the market, just depending on the capacity of the client that we're working with, because some people are more sensitive than others. So they actually might be sensitive to something like biotoxin binder, which then we might use something like Toxumi instead, or an ozonated charcoal, for example.
How would someone know if they're sensitive to it?
They would have a very like probably obvious reaction to it in a sense. So maybe a
Just
skin
not
break.
feeling good or
Yeah, like their skin, like they might get a skin rash from it, or like my dad had a headache as a result of it. And sometimes that can just be an indicator that the drainage is still clogged and we need to support drainage more at a higher level before we bring in the binder, or maybe we need to support the nervous system a little bit more so that their body feels safe to release. But this is where working with a practitioner can be really, critical to help navigate some of these nuances.
yeah, because even if someone is using the restroom like every day, it doesn't necessarily mean that they are getting the drainage that they need. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, exactly. So drainage is the opening of the detox pathways specifically, like bile flow that's moving through.
Okay, so in that case, would you recommend something like coffee enemas or colon hydrotherapy or
Which can be helpful tools. I've had practitioner friends and clients that are even sensitive to being able to do a coffee enema,
okay.
right? So it just all depends on the individual, and those things are great, but they also may not be a daily therapy versus there's a lot of great products on the market like Tedka, for example, that actually helps to open up drainage. It helps to get the bile moving in the
How do
body.
you spell that?
It's TUDCA.
Okay.
Tedka, yeah. Which again, Cellcore has a great Tedka formula. There's some other good products that are out on the market, formulas on the market too.
Okay.
So take us back now to your story. The first time you're detoxing, we've been through phase 1, phase 2. How long about did it take to feel like you were back to being yourself, mold free, symptom free, mycotoxin free?
I think that the reversal of the Hashimoto's at that 6 month mark was a huge kind of turning point. Where at that point, like just knowing that that was back under the control, meaning that the inflammatory fire had really come down a lot at that point in time. With that, like the acne had disappeared, the night sweats were gone completely. It took a little bit longer to get the weight off, but that's part of just the body like trapping those toxins in the fat tissue and really working with the body's safety mechanism to want to be able to allow that stuff to release over time. And we just want to work at the body's pace and capacity for that, you know?
Which
I
for
mean,
you was maybe another 6 months? Was it about a
yeah,
year?
I would say, I mean, here's the hard part is that I am a overachiever.
I never
So
would have guessed that.
yeah. So when I look back on that year, it's kind of wild. I was like, man, like I had the breast inflammation and figured all this out. And then, I mean, that was like the day that I woke up in excruciating pain was like in April. And then by that fall, I was on a 3-week trip in Europe with like my girlfriends. Like, and
Wow.
then like I went to so many places that year because I was feeling well enough to do that. But I also think that part of what allowed me to do that is I had such a strong foundation. Having been a practitioner for a couple years, already had made a lot of changes in my lifestyle that were supporting my body in so many ways that I had some resiliency about me versus, other people that might be starting at a different point in their journey. It would
Yeah.
take possibly longer for that to happen.
That that does make a lot of sense. So then what did you do about remediating the mold from your house? How was that project?
Yeah, so that was really interesting. Luckily, we were at a place where we are about to do a remodel.
Ah,
So that helped, divine
yeah,
timing, right? But this is an important like topic because remediation needs to be done properly. And
yeah.
you really want to get a specialist out and a summary of that. We're looking for somebody who's going to come out. They're going to airtight seal off the contaminated area so that when they do remediation, it's not going to then spread mycotoxin particles into the rest of the house. So they came in this room and they put plastic up and airtight sealed it, taped it all down. They brought air scrubbers in. So the air scrubbers are scrubbing the air actually outside of the sealed off area. That way, when those guys like walk out of that sealed area, if there's any mycotoxins that escape, it's not getting spread into the house. And then I think the regulation is that they have to they're supposed to cut away like at least 4 feet in diameter around the actually like isolated area. And then they treat it like once they do that, they cut everything out, remove it safely. Then they're supposed to treat it with some mold, like paint treatment stuff, leave it for a couple of days, and then come back and retest to make sure that it's not there anymore. And then you have the reconstruction that takes place after that,
And
basically.
I don't know if we covered this yet, but was there a roof leak or something? How did the mold get there in the first place?
Yeah, we had a roof leak that, I mean, we moved into the house in 2010 and this was in 2016. So we don't know how long the roof leak had been there necessarily for, and it was repaired, but just not repaired properly. So it was probably an ongoing issue for quite some time.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. Is this the house you still live in?
it is.
It is. So you remodeled and got mold again. Should we go to that
Fast forward to now.
fast forward to now?
Yeah. So this is where luckily I'd been on this journey before. So here I am again, actually about a year ago. So last year I was at a conference and I had kind of like a defining moment, a rock bottom moment that occurred where we stayed in a hotel that was under construction. And I woke up the next morning basically feeling super sensitive and reactive to everything, like the carpet smell, the like air freshener in the hotel was driving me bananas. And I was like, this is so interesting. And I got home and my weight had jumped up again. So I use my weight as a biomarker, not to like be obsessive over it, but it's an indication of health for me. And I know where my body feels at home, right? On the scale. And so when I got home, like my weight had shot up like 6 pounds. And no matter what I did, like it wasn't coming down, even after fasting for 3 days, which I'll do occasionally to kind of like reset my system. So that led me to do a urine mycotoxin test to see what was going on, or a toxins test, what was going on in my body. And sure enough, had some mold that showed up there. But the kicker this time was that there was no visible mold anywhere. Like there's no water damage. Like we hadn't had any leaks. I couldn't see it anywhere. And so I was like, okay, well, maybe this is from the hotel that I was just in. Like I do travel quite a bit for work. It could be other exposures. So I put myself on a protocol and I'm kind of working through that and I'm getting like minimal results. Like not a lot of stuff is moving. So then I retested and the same molds came up and they had not moved much at all, which was a pretty signature sign that I'm probably in an active exposure situation at home. So the places that I spend the most time at home are my office and my bedroom. So I tested both of those places with something called an ERMI test. It's a dust test that you do where it's literally like a little Swiffer cloth that you take around and you dust, like you want to get it dirty with dust and send that in. And then they'll test that for mycotoxins. And my office, again, has mold.
Oh my gosh.
Why?
Exactly. So now I'm becoming even more mold and building literate than I was before.
Yeah.
And it's really interesting going, and I'm still in the process of this, you guys, like doing investigation and figuring out like what is exactly happening. So it looks like there is mold or moisture accumulation in the wall cavities.
Oh no.
And it appears that there's a possibility that my window seal has been leaking, which apparently is a very common thing
Yeah.
that can happen, especially with metal window seals, which is what we have. I also had one of those like wall unit AC units, like they call it a split,
Yeah.
in the office that was removed. And so we're wondering if condensation got inside of there. Also now learning that what looks like stucco on the outside of our house is not actually stucco. It's a different type of building material that actually can trap moisture like in between the like into the wall. And so if you look out on the wall, there are these little like bubbling areas. And I was just talking with a building specialist the other day and he was like, well, if it's really stucco, it's not going to be soft. Like stucco is hard. So he had me go like poke the little bubbles to see if they were soft. And sure enough, they're soft. So it's not stucco. And there's probably moisture that's getting trapped within there. So we're still exploring actually what the root cause is exactly within this building. Luckily, this is like an ADU unit that we have. It's like not attached to the main house. It's isolated. It's like this garage gym conversion that we have where our offices were out there as well. So that's great because it's not impacting our like central air system or anything like
Yeah.
that. And I can remove myself from the building.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So mold is maybe the cheapest form of toxin
Yeah.
to grow and almost maybe the most expensive to remediate and get rid of.
Yeah. It's the most prevalent. We didn't even talk.
Yeah, it's everywhere.
Yeah. And we didn't even talk about the mold in our food.
No, yeah.
Or what's in our air, so that you're just kind of like, yes, it's building stuff, like it's the water damage, it's the building mold that's happening, but we're also then like when we talk about, go back to that concept of like your bucket being overflowing, there is so much mold in our food, you guys.
Yeah,
Like,
let's talk about the mold
Yep.
in the food for a second.
okay, what do we, I'm like,
Well,
how
I
did
mean,
know this?
I
Because-
recently took a mold test. Well, it was about a year ago now, and
Yep.
came back and I had like 4 different, like kind of off the charts markers in the red for mold from food sources.
Mhm.
It doesn't really say exactly what the food sources might be. It kind of maybe gives some suggestions as to what it might be.
Mhm.
And I have my hunches as to what it was. One thing being coffee, not understanding how important it was to have a mold-free, mycotoxin-free coffee every day because I'm like a total coffee drinker. And so we remedied that with our Firefly organic coffee, and we did our third-party testing, and we make sure that it's clean. But that was so eye-opening for me. But in terms of other food, like of course I stay away from blue cheese and I guess cashews and maybe some dried fruits. But if
Peanut
you can
butter.
just give us an idea of some of the things to really look out for.
Yeah, so coffee is like a big one, you guys. And let's just talk to the people at home that don't have Firefly coffee real
Well, they
quick.
can get it. They can
Yeah,
get it at
they,
jigsawhealth.com.
they
But
can
yes,
get it. And then let's also talk about how they're going to brew it at home
right.
because however you're brewing your coffee can be also contaminated with mold and also like plastics.
Hmm.
So this is where we want to do like a Chemex or a French press that's made out of glass or stainless steel, like eliminate all mold possibilities. So coffee is a huge one. And then we have things like peanut butter. Any kind of nut butters can be really high
Hmm.
Yeah.
in mold, or we're just like getting that constant drip into the bucket from any level of nut butters that we're consuming. Nuts in general can be very moldy, even though it's not visible
Right.
on the mold, like
Why
visible
is
on
that?
them. It's the storage component.
Yep. Same with
So there's two kind of things. Is one is that if they're not organic, so when they're not organic, we're going to get more contamination of pesticides and herbicides like glyphosate.
Yep.
And mold loves glyphosate. It's like food for mold.
Uh-huh.
I've never
So
heard that before.
oh yeah, and it
Good to
makes it
know.
even worse, definitely. And then
Huh.
so that's where a lot of our like non-organic nuts, but also just the storage of them. Like,
Hmm.
and this has been a conversation in our industry for some time about nuts becoming like rancid also. So there's a whole thing around nuts in general and a lot of things, rabbit holes we could go down, but
Yeah. I mean,
nuts,
that is one of the things that I pretty much cut out for that reason.
yeah,
And it's sad because it is one of the things that I feel like most health nuts go to for
yeah,
snacking. It's like, it's what, so many people recommend as like, this is a healthy snack.
right.
This
Yeah.
is one of the most healthy snacks, so people are just like eating copious amounts of nuts. And it's like, maybe it's not the healthiest snack
Mold
Yeah.
and
after all.
PUFAs.
Yeah,
Yeah.
mold and PUFAs. What could go wrong?
Yes. Eat them
Polyunsaturated fatty
sparingly.
acids. Right.
Yep.
Yep. And then grains are going to be another huge one
Hmm.
also. And part of
Well,
that is
glyphosate too, right?
exactly. I was going to say part of
Yeah.
that is because of the glyphosate
Yeah.
element, right? So here's an interesting story. I don't know if Jeremy mentioned this when you guys chatted with him, but with Biocanic, they just worked with a group to do the Pearl study. Did you guys talk about this
No,
at all?
I don't
It's
think
not
so.
ringing a bell.
Okay. So the Pearl study was that they wanted to do a study looking at children that were on the spectrum for autism and seeing what would happen if they put them on a protocol to change their diet. So they did some testing in the beginning. One of the tests that they did was a mycotoxins test. And they all came back like basically the population data showed that they had elevated levels of ochratoxin, which is
Hmm.
a type of mold. And it's a type of foodborne or food related mold specifically that we see in a lot of grains, right? So then they put them on an organic grain-free diet and they did retesting and they saw the ochratoxin drop and all of their autistic symptoms also improved as a result of that.
Yeah.
So Jeremy was really interested in like what is going on here, like what's happening with ochratoxin. And so if you actually go do some research about our food production, which I know you guys have delved into with your documentary and all the things that you guys do, like what's happening is that when they're producing that grain and it's riddled with glyphosate and it's producing the mold, they do have to do mold testing. And if it is too high with the mold, they'll just add more grain to dilute it down
Hmm.
to
Yes.
the acceptable level for it to then be packaged in our food.
Instead of getting rid of the mold source,
Yeah.
they
Yeah,
I do remember Jeremy talking
Yeah.
about that because I remember that punchline and being like, "Are you kidding me?"
right.
yeah. Oh my gosh. Of course they're doing that.
Of course. And
So
there,
even more of a good reason to make sure that if you are consuming grains of any kind, make sure that it's organic. The glyphosate aspect alone is the reason to stay away from non-organic grains.
Yeah. And I would say if you have any opportunity to source your grains from Europe, that's
Yes.
the best place to go.
Yes.
You know?
I definitely buy imported pasta, or any flour that I use is like an Italian imported flour. So,
Mhm.
oh gosh,
This is thought kind of occurring. So if mold loves glyphosate, if you have been eating grain that's filled with glyphosate, your
Mhm.
mold is probably getting worse because the
Oh yeah.
mold is then colonizing using that glyphosate in your system and it's getting
Yeah.
worse, right? Is that
Yeah. That is a great hypothesis that actually would make sense, I would say
Mm.
there, Patrick. And also I'll just add on this, not to add insult to injury here, but EMFs also make mold worse. So
Explain?
electromagnetic frequencies
Yep.
in your home, so in the environment, will like stimulate more mold growth like in the building itself, but also within your body. So we want
So EMFs are Wi-Fi and cell phones
cell phone
and
data, radiation, all of that stuff, because mold is a living organism, right? We
yeah.
have to remember that. It's just like a plant. There's cells, it has its own frequency. And so when those electromagnetic frequencies are out there, it's interrupting the mold's communication, like its own cellular frequencies. And so then the mold is fighting against that essentially and growing more. It's like responding to that and proliferating more.
All right, let me just turn off the Wi-Fi.
But, you
For
know,
those listening, I cut the camera, but literally, like, are we supposed to give up Wi-Fi? I,
well,
I don't know. I mean, what do we practically do? What do we pragmatically do
yeah, so
here?
I'll tell you some of the things that I have done that to help minimize the impacts, right? Like we can't live in a bubble. We're not going to go be
Yeah.
cavemen again. So what can we do? So I have made an effort to hardwire my computer in my office. And that actually has made a huge difference. You
Hmm.
know, occasionally I turn on my Wi-Fi because I want to transfer a file from my phone to my computer. And if I forget to turn off my Wi-Fi on my computer, within an hour or so, I'll be like, oh, I feel really drained and depleted. And I'm like, oh, yeah, I forgot to turn the Wi Fi off. And so once we do those things, we'll start to notice some of those differences.
Yeah.
Think about your phone. Like your phone has like three different signals that are operating all the time. You've got cell data, Bluetooth, and Wi Fi. You don't need them all on all the time. And especially if your phone is around you, it's like pinging your body.
Mm.
So I try to be really conscious of when I'm in the house, it's on Wi-Fi. Bluetooth is turned off unless I need to use it. When I leave the house, then I turn the cell data on and I turn the Wi-Fi off. So it's not getting pings all the time. When we're using like wearables like an Aura Ring, Garmin, Fitbit, you can turn the Bluetooth off. So the device is still collecting the data, and then when you want to sync up your data to your phone to look at it, just turn the Bluetooth on in that moment and then turn it back off,
Interesting.
right? And then there's quite a few other things that we can do, but I think that those are like some really like low hanging fruit kind of things for people to think about.
Yeah, I wonder how much stressing about EMF is worse than the EMF itself. Your ideas I like because they're all practical and pragmatic and they're
Mhm.
sort of location or need based. So I can
Mhm.
see myself like just getting into habits of like, okay,
Yeah.
I don't, I'm not using my AirPods or I'm everything that you just described. But I think on the flip side, there's this like, I'm being hit by EMFs right now, and I can't. And it's like your now immune system is frazzled. It's wired because
Yeah.
you're thinking about EMFs, and I don't know. I guess I kind of I hate I hate being scared. I don't want to be scared. I don't want to live in
Yeah.
fear. That's I guess
Totally.
what it comes down to.
I think I like to say I'm a realist. So it's like, what are the things that are within your control that we can then work with? And then things that are outside of your control, like how do we just offset the impact of that? Like
Yeah.
hydrogen. is little like hydrogen tablets or hydrogen water is a great type of tool to combat EMF like interference or impact on the body, for example.
Is that what people mean when they say structured water?
No, those are two totally different things.
Okay.
So for hydrogen, I love like Quicksilver Scientific has these H2 Elite hydrogen tabs. They're like little fizzy tabs that
Nice.
you can put in a glass of water, drink them a couple of times a day, or you can get hydration or hydrogen water machines.
Yeah.
Structured water is more about bringing structure back to our water. So if we think about our ancestors, they drank water that was, in motion, like coming from a stream or a brook or a natural hot spring. And the water that we drink now is essentially like what people will say it's dead.
Yeah.
Like it doesn't have that natural movement in it. So it's lost its structure. And that's kind of the idea of like structured water is we're bringing that structured water back to us, which is something that like that's the natural form of water that our ancestors used to drink that we just don't do anymore in our modern day world,
How do you turn water from dead to structured?
So there's actually structured like water machines that you can get. I do not have one of those, so I've got some tricks around that also. What's really interesting, I think you guys will love this being musicians, is that you can play like different types of sound music that'll shift the molecules of the water. So that's one way to actually
Wow.
structure water, which is wild, right?
Yeah.
Crazy.
We have a distiller in our house. So a distiller is a really like inexpensive way to get the cleanest drinking water possible. You
Yep.
guys can get one off of Amazon for like $100. And so we distill our water and then I put it into like a large glass water thing that has some rose quartz crystals in the bottom. And so those crystals will help to like structure the water and then pouring it from the spout. So it's like running water that's coming out, right? So there are some simple things that you can do to bring more structure back to your water.
Fascinating.
Yeah, those are some great practical tips. Thank you for sharing those. I feel like this all can be just so overwhelming for people. One of the things I wanted to ask you really quickly is basically like in your mold situation, Jeremy never ended up with the mold.
I was going to ask the same question. I'm glad you did.
I think that's to be determined, essentially. This is also interesting about like different people's bodies respond differently to
Yeah.
things. And a great story and example of this is I'm currently working with a client of mine and a dear friend, actually. She came to me after her third round of kidney stones. So her first set of kidney stones was 3 millimeters. The second set was 5 millimeters. And she had a stent put in to pass it. And then the third one was 7 or 10 millimeters. And she was like, I don't want to have a stent done again. I don't know what to do about this. And so I was like, based on her symptoms, I was like, you've got mold. So let's do a toxins test. And her toxins test came back like kind of boring. There was no mold on it. But that is because people can be poor eliminators. So when the nervous system is so dysregulated, the body's just going to trap all that stuff in the tissues and it's not going to come out necessarily, right?
Yeah.
So got her on a protocol, regulating her nervous system, coaxing things out of the body. We just retested and now we're finding the mold finally on her mycotoxins test.
Yeah, that's also the other challenge. I mean, well, if you're not challenging the test, right? You're not provoking it, I mean.
Kind of, but even with that, Ashley, so provocation, like people will say, oh, do a bunch of glutathione. Like if the nervous system is dysregulated, those tissues are not letting anything out. The glutathione is more of a detox system provoker. It's not regulating the nervous system so that the body feels safe to let the toxins out of the tissues.
It all really does come down to the nervous system, doesn't it?
It kind of does.
Like all roads lead to the nervous system.
Every time. Every time.
Well, this is really fascinating, really good practical information. I think that the whole mold conversation is very loud right now. And there are many people that are finding themselves in a situation where they're like, oh crap, I didn't think I was going to have mold. I mean,
Yeah.
exhibit A.
Yeah.
Yep.
And so figuring out how to deal with that, and the amount of practitioners that aren't even thinking about running
Oh,
mold
yeah.
tests for people, because if the blood work looks good, their job is done here. No
Oh,
matter the symptoms that you're trying to tell them, but I don't feel right. And
yeah.
it's like you have to have so much time, so much money to resources to try and find a practitioner or an answer. And it's
Mhm.
like, this has to change.
Yeah, and that is why now in my practice, like doing a environmental toxins test is a foundation. Everybody does that test.
Good.
And I think that we need to move in that direction. I mean, I just had a client from 2015 come back to me because she's 49. She has a history of Hashimoto's and she's been gaining weight for 2 years. She was put on hormone replacement therapy, and now her practitioner is trying to talk to her about peptides. And I was like, I think we should run a environmental toxins test and a Dutch test and a GI map to see what's going on. She literally has the worst toxins panel I've ever seen in my practice.
Oh my gosh.
She has probably at least 10 to 15 molds that are flagged high. And I was like, there's no amount of hormone replacement therapy or peptides that's going to fix this
Yeah.
situation. Right? It was like, it was a missed mark. And we just have to start to, like, I think, really pay attention to what's been going on in our environment now for decades. I mean, generationally, for a long time, the accumulation of toxins and the impact that it's having on the bodies, and really start to make that a priority in the work that we're doing.
I'd like to think that these conversations are getting out to our audience and to others to help them understand just how important environmental toxins are. We recently did a test, gotmold.com, at our house because Ashley was like, hey, let's try this. And we know the person that runs
Yeah.
that. It came back clean on that. Now, that is just one form of a mold test. So it's like, okay, we passed level 1. Do we go to level 2? Do we do the ERMI test that you tried?
How much
I would do
Yeah.
the ERMI test. I would say that in this like current situation, I'm working with multiple specialists. So everything from my personal practitioner to the mold mitigation specialist that I hired to the building specialist, the building scientist that I just spoke to,
Yeah.
every single one of them is like ERMI test is the gold standard
Okay.
to start with. So that's what
Interesting.
and that's been what's revealing for us.
Interesting.
And ERMI is ERMIE, right?
Yes, exactly.
Okay. So just Google ERMI test and I'm sure we'll find it.
I will send you a link.
Yep. And we'll put one in the show notes too.
Yeah, definitely. This has been such a great conversation. A couple of questions that we like to ask all of our guests. Number one, if you could write a book about your journey, your rock bottom story, do you have a title? What would that book be called?
Making the impossible possible.
I love that.
Yes. So you need to write that book.
Eh,
Maybe. Hey, if you never do, at least you have a good title.
exactly.
Another question we like to ask is on a scale of 1 to 10, with 1 being the worst and 10 being the best, when you were at your first rock bottom moment, what was your number back then?
God, I would probably say like at least a 3. I just remember being like literally on my knees in tears praying to God to like give me a sign because could not figure it out. I was like, I was at my wit's end about it, really.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was hard.
And how about now? Same scale, 1 to 10. What's your number most days?
I would say with our current mold situation, I'm probably like a 7. Like I feel very hopeful being more informed and educated. It's still
Right.
a little bit of a weird, like sketchy situation to navigate. Like I'm just learning so much more at this point in time, but I know at the end of the day, I'm going to figure it out, you know?
I have no doubt that you will.
Yeah. Jen, what's the best way for people to contact you, to follow you on socials?
Yeah, I love hanging out over on Instagram. It's my favorite place. So people can find me as the Holistic Health Boss over there. Holistic is with a W, like whole foods or whole body. Send me a message, or I share this kind of informational content over there all the time. And I also do a very regular newsletter. So you can go to holistichealthboss.com, jump on my VIP newsletter list, and get this kind of information to your inbox as well.
Well, it was a wonderful conversation. Loved your phase 1 and phase 2 detox analogies. Learned a lot today.
Absolutely.
Remember, everybody, you got to poop every day.
Got to poop every day.
And we'll leave you with that. Thanks, Jenn.
Thank you.
Thank you.
This episode of the Rock Bottom Podcast is brought to you by Jigsaw Health, a family-owned, Arizona-based nutritional supplement company. Every formula is made with clean ingredients that are third-party tested to ensure that what's on the label is in the bottle and nothing else. Learn more at jigsawhealth.com.
Do you have a health horror story? We're always looking for stories that will inspire others, so please use the link in the description to apply to be on our show. Finally, if this episode resonated with you, then please like and subscribe. It really helps others to find our show, and we want to help spread the word. New episodes drop every other Wednesday, so thank you so much for tuning in, and we'll see you on the next show.